Welcome to Alcohol-Free Superpowers, the podcast for those questioning the role of alcohol in their lives and choosing clarity over conditioning. I'm your host, Jennifer Reed. We're talking truth, transformation, and what really takes to reclaim your power. Let's dive in.
Well, thank you for having me on, first of all, but I've been drinking since a very young age. I can't even remember the first one. It's at 55, our memories aren't as good as they once were. Right. Certainly not helped by alcohol, but it really became problematic, I would say, when life started hurling challenges at me and I didn't know how to deal with them. In my late 20s, I went through a divorce, and that was kind of the start of a shattering of identities that I had in my mind. Divorce in my mind was never an option, and suddenly it was a reality. I spent a bunch of time in the military, very successful career in the military, successful career as a international consultant with a Big Five consulting firm. And, all of a sudden, with kids and with just life challenges that we all face, things started happening that were not in my control. And that was really I guess, like most folks, I've always believed that, my destiny is up to me to make. And I had this image of identity, and that involved being successful professionally, being a husband, a father, a member of a community, a contributor. Service for me has always been a big deal. And so the divorce kind of threw the first wrench in the image. But as with anything, military or non-military, I pressed on, put one foot in front of the other and kept going. But every time something negative happened, whether it was around the visitation of kids or getting a bill from an attorney or something like that, the escape route was alcohol.
Okay.
So that evolved over, so that was sort of early 30s and on, kind of kept happening. Fortunately, there were a lot of great things that happened in life. So it wasn't a daily thing. I would say it was problematic, certainly, but it was not routine. It was not my always go-to method. But I'll tell you what really threw me for a curve, my wife, so I call my first marriage sort of my practice marriage.
Okay.
And I've been married now for 24 years and absolutely love it. I love my wife, love the relationship. She is a Marine, so she outranks, I'm Army. She outranks me in every way. Incredible lady, but we very successful professionally as well as personally. And we got to a point lifestyle wise where we had 4 kids and somebody had to stay home. So I raised my hand after all this time being on the road, traveling all over the place, doing great things, closing big deals. I said, yeah, I'll be a stay-at-home dad. And we decided to embark on a crusade of a fixer-upper. And so we bought a 10-acre ranch that hadn't been lived in for 7 years. And I said, yeah, I'll be a project manager, stay-at-home dad. I'll make this thing awesome. I did not realize, Jen, how much of a different mentality that brings to a person. And all credit to stay-at-home moms and dads everywhere. It is the least glorified and hardest job there is, 100% hands down. But it was not my identity. And, this goes back to the previous thing. All of a sudden I'm thrust into doing dishes and putting up windows and cleaning up animal stuff. And that was my daily list of accomplishments. And my identity, my ego, used to hunting bad guys and closing big deals, all these kinds of things, it just gone. And I've really had a hard time with that. And then you layer that on top of COVID, which is right about the same time.
Okay.
And now, just it became a daily thing, and not just a daily thing. I mean, you know the cycle. It's you drink to numb things away, to forget, you embarrass yourself, you make people mad, upset, and then you wake up the next morning, and I'll tell you, this is one of the real keys for me. My wife would turn to me every morning and say, "Do you even remember what you said to me last night?"
Mm.
And this is a woman I love and think the world of. And day after day, when she says this, it just so what does that do? That makes you want to drink more, right? It makes you want to numb that away. It made me, that I'll speak for myself. And so that went on for probably 6 months, the first 6 months of COVID, and finally my wife came to me and said, looked me in the eye and said, "Jim, when you were in the Army and you got wounded, you saw a medic, right?"
Okay.
Yep, I did. And she said, You're wounded. You need help. You can't fix you. I can't fix you. Something needs to change." And that was the time that I talk a lot about, and actually write. I'm an author, and I write novels about the power of surrender and how we are raised. I was raised to think surrender was a bad word.
Weakness, yeah.
A huge weakness. In fact, it was a negative word that, if I said that in the Rangers and the elite units that I served with, you'd be sent to the rear. You wouldn't be a part of the team anymore. So that day when my wife confronted me, and she did so in the best way possible. I mean, she had already done research on rehab facilities, found one that was up in the mountains in North Georgia here, and a place that she knew, wasn't clinical, wasn't like a prison. It was more like a refuge. And she presented this to me as an option. And to get in, I actually had to call them and admit that I had a problem.
Okay.
So surrender. And yeah, so that happened right in the middle of COVID. And I went and did my 35-day stint at rehab, thinking that, okay, I'll do this for 6 months and then I'll be good. I'll be normal. And there was a moment during that 35 days, actually, I can remember it exactly, 13 days in, and I was taking a walk around the grounds, and I found an old tennis ball, and I picked it up, and I looked at it, and I thought about that movie Castaway with Tom Hanks and Wilson, right? So I'm looking at this ball, and it's actually a pen ball. So I said, "Oh, Tom Hanks had Wilson, I have pen." But I heard a voice, and it sounds crazy, but I heard a voice that said, "Be done with it." And that was the moment that I fully surrendered. Kind of, God, take this from me. I can't deal with it. And so it's been, I'm coming up on 64 months here on the 1st of September, and, taking it one day at a time. There are good days and bad days and all that. But, the biggest message that I want to get out there is that, A, surrender is not a bad word. And B, when you're struggling, there are all kinds of people and resources out there who can help, and do so without expectation, without judgment. And those things were the two big things I was worried about, right? I mean, gosh, who's going to know? Who's going to... Everybody's going to think I'm a failure now. My life is a wreck. 50 years of working hard and trying to do the right thing just down the drain because I'm a drunk. And that couldn't be further from the case. And now, I have all kinds of stories about how my journey has impacted, the people, my kids, my wife. They've seen both sides and can't believe the difference. Relationships are so different now. And really it comes down to just a daily reminder of the need to surrender. Things I can't control, things I'm feeling, I need to process them. All things that, you might look at a man and say, and this isn't, I don't mean this in a sexist way, but you might look at a man and say, "Oh, you need to be tough, strong. You can do it by yourself," all this kind of stuff. But, for me, I needed help, and it was a God thing that I got it.
Yeah. No, I get a lot that, I don't have as many men on the podcast. But they seem to be the most downloaded episodes, the ones I do have. So it is really interesting. So I get it. I think there is a stigma out there. Like, you don't mean to be, but there is that provider, masculine, but I agree with that.
Well, and it's amazing. I think, in rehab, I was one of the oldest there. So I was 50, just over 50. I don't even remember my 50th birthday because I was so hammered during it.
Mm.
But people call me grandpa, but it's been really neat, the community. Once you set aside the differences, and that's something else I like to talk about, is when you're interacting with people, find what you have in common and disregard the differences. There'll always be differences, but find what you have in common and go from there. And that helps with the no judgments, no expectations. And whether you're a man or a woman, a stay-at-home or professional minded, it's just such a liberating experience to be able to say, I don't need to deal with this. I don't need to get angry with this. I don't need to numb this away. I can just be present and be me. And now I've found that really when I feel people being inauthentic or just putting on a mask, all the stuff that I used to do. So I'm not pointing fingers. I mean, I used to do that with the best of them. But I really appreciate people who can be a little bit vulnerable, open up and say, yep, I'm not perfect, but I'm improving every day. And, as we say in the program, it's about progress, not perfection. And yeah, so it's just been a tremendous journey, and it warms my heart just to talk about it and share it with folks, because I know there was a time when I thought about it, those mornings after, when my wife would say, do you even remember what you said? I thought about, well, what would it take to give this up? But it just, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And it took hearing somebody say, you need help, and it's okay to need help.
Yeah.
To get me over the edge.
So when you went into rehab, were you at the idea of, I'm going to try this and then drink, quote, normally, or were you like, no, I'm going to quit? What was your?
Yeah, I went in thinking I'm going to do this for 6 months, and I'm going to do it with, I'll do it 100%, give it all to it. And then, I'm a big backyard barbecue guy. I love drinking a beer or a good whiskey or something, with the guys, or, my wife has all these business social events that open bars, and, I'll be able to do that stuff again. This was all the mindset I had. But when I realized that doesn't help me, I don't have the ability to say I'm just, I'll just have one. My wife can do that. She'll order a drink and leave half of it in her glass, and I'll say, oh, that's alcohol abuse right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But she can do that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And I like the person that I am. I like the energy that I'm 55, and I have more energy today than I did for probably the last 2 decades of my life. I feel younger. I feel healthier. I feel more present when people need me. And it just makes all the difference. So,
yeah, for sure. So, and your wife probably still drinks or has that half a drink every once in a while. Yeah. How has your relationship changed? I mean, I'm sure this question comes up a lot. I mean, half a drink is different than most. So how is it different now that you are no longer drinking?
It's interesting. It's really situation dependent. I think there are, it's great at home when I don't have to worry about when's the next drink. That was a big deal for me. Do I have enough to get me through the weekend? Do I need to make a run out? All of those pressures of that an addict, has, were always going through my mind. And so there was always tension. My wife was always quite looking at me. Are you, drinking or all that kind of stuff? And of course, I thought I could hide it well, but we never do. So it was stressful then. But since then, there's no stress. It took a while to rebuild the trust, and she's been nothing but amazing with, when we go to one of her business events where there's alcohol, I immediately get a glass in my hand of bubbly water, which is my new drug of choice.
Yeah.
fancy if I throw in a twist of lime or something. That's really awesome. But, I get something in my hand and then I feel just fine. I don't feel weirded out. There are times when I'm out at events and somebody says, "Oh, let me get you a drink," and you say, "No, I'm good," and they look at you like, you know, and so there's still some of that social anxiety, I would say, but we have. My wife and I have some code words that we use, or I'll give her a nod and say, "Hey, you know what? I just need to go make a phone call or run back and check on the animals at the house," whatever it is. And there's no pressure. It's just, the way it is. I think my biggest challenge, honestly, Jen, is finding people who, in sort of the day-to-day community life, where drinking is not a part of things. And because I don't enjoy just putting myself in that situation anymore. And so, there's some, as we get up there in age and think about, who we want to be friends with and spend meaningful time with, go on vacations with, all of that stuff comes into play. And it's a challenge, but I wouldn't trade it for a minute. I really wouldn't.
How are your friends or maybe your old drinking buddies now? Like, do you have them? Or have some of them quit? Or are those relationships?
Yeah, I've always been the guy where the kind of guy where quality is more important than quantity. I like going deep in relationships and investing in them and being there much more than just the, "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh, great. Kids are doing this, I'm doing this," all that kind of stuff. I would say that the heavier drinkers have all faded away. The interesting thing, though, Jen, is especially having an online presence and promoting some of the benefits and mindsets of sobriety. It is, I'll get people reaching out to me now saying, "Hey," this especially got men saying, "Hey, I saw your post and would love to chat with you about it. I'm kind of curious about it. This message or that message. How'd you do it?" And so telling that story is very helpful to me, like this, and going to the meetings and those kinds of things. Those are where the kinds of non-judgmental, no expectations kind of people are that I really enjoy being around. So it's like anything else, trying to find your people and surrounding yourself with people who make you better and not want to pull you back to where you were.
Yeah. So you mentioned meetings. So are you continuing to do that? And then what else are you doing? I mean, you wrote one book. You wrote more than one book, I assume, since you said you're an author. Is that right?
So I have, if you saw my desk, it's absolutely cluttered with editing and revisions for my second novel.
Okay.
And I have about 1,000 ideas in my head. I've always loved reading. I love losing myself in books, but I've always wanted to write. And my wife kept kicking me in the butt for like the last 2 decades saying, "You've always talked about this. Why don't you do it?" Yeah, I always found an excuse not to. And maybe it was fear. Maybe it was, worry about being judged or whatnot. Well, in sobriety, I found that, hey, I can make some thrillers. I'm a big fan of like the Indiana Jones and the Da Vinci Code and kind of the what ifs of mythical options in the real world. So I thought, wow, there's a real opportunity here for me to weave in some of these sobriety messages and really redemption stories into thrillers.
Yeah, nice.
And so I'm very passionate about writing. I'm learning, it's not something you just sit down and start typing and it comes out great. I have good days and bad days. In fact, I've been sending this, trying to get a publisher, literary agents to, I don't know if you know much about the publishing world, but to get a traditional book deal, you have to get a literary agent. And I sent it out to 52 different agents with high hopes and expectations. And I think I'm up to about 28 rejections, and not like detailed rejections. Oh, this is good, but you fix this or what? It's just no.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I'm glad I'm not drinking because getting those rejections, that's hard. I mean, being rejected is difficult, but surrender that and keep focused on making a good story, focus on the things I can control, which is learning more about writing and styles and techniques. And so constant improvement. And, one day we'll see, maybe something will come through, but either way, it's helped me. It's kept me out of trouble. I can create worlds and characters that I fall in love with and all that kind of stuff. So that's my hope, is to convey great stories, thrilling stories, engaging stories in a way that makes people think a little bit about, what does surrender really mean? Or what does, what are the possibilities out there? I think it's exciting.
So did you self-publish your first book?
I used a hybrid publisher for my first book. So they helped me with some editing and cover design and all those kinds of things. And that was a neat experience. I learned a ton in the process, but I'd really like to find, and I'm actually working with Lauren Legacy, which is a Christian offshoot of Square Tree Publishing on this book. So I'm very hopeful that those amazing women and men can help me shape this in a little bit of a loving way, and they're doing a great job with it. Big thanks to them, and we'll see where it goes.
Nice. Where is your first book at? Is that Endless Horizons? Is that the
It is. It's cheaper and personally autographed and inscribed. If you order it through my website, it's jtmckinley.com, and it's also on Amazon. But and that's another community. I mean, Jen, talk about neat communities, the writing community, everybody supporting each other. And that's a big message too, is seeing life as a competition, which is how I used to see life. I needed to be better than, I needed to have more than, I needed to have the titles and the recognition and all those things. Now, in sobriety, it's not about competition. In writing, it's not about a competition. We're all after the same thing. We're all seeking to improve. So, between meetings, whether it's AA meetings or whatever your sober program is, kind of meetings or the writing cohorts that I'm a part of, everybody's just there to help and make you stronger and make you better and provide, loving encouragement. So it's a neat thing.
And you mentioned people finding you and you're posting. Are you on Instagram and Facebook?
I am Instagram and Facebook, J_T_McKinley on both. And you'll find information about my books and sobriety and my journey. And I have a personal mission. Anyone, I take my recovery. It's definitely a God thing. And I feel called to help without, like I said, without expectation or judgment. I call it reflecting the light. I'm called to reflect the light because sobriety is not my light. It's not my doing. It's the doing of all the people around me, the program I'm a part of, my higher power, all those kinds of things. And so anybody who reaches out to me on socials or through my website, I will definitely get back to you and look forward to being a part of your journey, however you deem fit.
Awesome. I like it. So which I feel like you do too, like to emphasize the positives of not drinking. What are some positives that came about that maybe surprise you? Like there's the typical, I think, health and, whatnot. What are some that you're like, oh, wow, that's surprising?
That's a great question, Jen. And the biggest surprise is the impact on my children. As a parent, what we do, they see everything. It's amazing. My youngest actually just left to go to college. So I am now officially an empty nester, except for all the rescue animals running around the ranch here. But I have a son who struggled with a lot of the same issues that I had. And he got out of the Marine Corps, and after serving, doing some incredible service, and went into a really dark place. And And this happened right about the same time I was getting out of rehab. And
Mm.
I learned through rehab that you can't preach. Preaching only goes so far, but being present is something, and demonstrating through your actions is so much more meaningful than your words. So what I chose to do with the son who basically cut everybody off, isolated himself, went into a dark place, started using and drinking and all those kinds of things. And this was at 23, 24 years old, critical time in his life.
Sure.
And so every week I'd write him a letter. And I didn't preach. This was right after rehab. I didn't preach. I didn't tell him he had to clean himself up. I just told him the benefits of being sober in my life. Told him about my experience at rehab every week. And we didn't get a phone call. I didn't get a response letter. And I never expected one. I closed
These are
each letter with
letters, not email,
mail,
right?
physical letters. And I didn't close any of those with an expectation, write me back or call, and none of that stuff. I just wrote him and said, reach out anytime, I'm here. And about 6 months later, and it's funny, during that whole time, my wife kept saying to me, we're going to get one of two calls. We're going to get a call that he's in jail or that he's in the hospital or dead. And it was that bad, Jen. But one day after about 6 months, it was a Saturday night. I can remember it, October in Saturday night. And he called me, and I'll tell you, I was in the truck to go pick him up. He was living about 6 hours away. And he was in rehab the next morning, and all because of what I had gone through and the help I had received. And, that's not a credit to me at all. It's a credit to the program. It's a credit to, focusing on what I can control, all of those things. And so he's coming up on 2 years of awesome life, having gone through his own transformation. And I'll tell you, I would not have been in a position to provide that kind of support if I hadn't gone through what I went through. So to think, how amazing is it that at 20 some years old, he has the same wisdom now that I learned. It took me half a century to learn.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Then you look back
and the ripple.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, it really, I can't even describe how happy I am for him. And that's just the most visible aspect. All my other kids have a different, there are ones at Alabama, ones at Georgia, drinking cultures, using cultures.
Yeah.
And they have a whole different appreciation because of what I've gone through of what that can lead to. So, that's just an example of, an unplanned, I could not have forecasted that. I couldn't justify, I'll do this because it'll help somebody. No, it just, that came about because I accepted surrender. And yeah, so, I mean, the opportunities to improve somebody's life, even somebody who just somebody who's watching this and it just plants a seed and it adds on to another seed and gets some water and sunshine from somebody else. And who knows how many people are impacted by the work that you're doing here, Jen, and the work that we're all trying to do to spread the word that it's okay to not conform to a society that you can't watch a football game or a baseball game without seeing 25 different commercials and
right. Yeah.
You know the deal.
Yeah. You have a very good story.
I followed the titles. I followed the money, the worldwide traveling. I spent 6 months in South Africa, a bunch of time in India, a bunch of time in Europe. It was all great work, and I loved doing it and met a lot of interesting people, but not for the right reasons. But maybe it's not, not the best way. And I think the big balance, it's like with life. The big balance is, do I want to create something that I'm proud of, or do I want to market? Do I want something? I mean, I do a lot of, like I said, I love to read, and I read a lot of other books to find out where the genre is going and all that kind of stuff. And, the language, the darkness that comes up in a lot of these books is just it's incredible. And they're selling, right? So
Yeah.
it's,
Mm-hmm.
we have to kind of figure out where do we want to invest our time, and what do we want to attach our name to and our message to. I think staying true to that, to me, is far more important than, I'm a New York Times bestseller, which, oh, by the way, the whole bestseller business is it's rigged from the start. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, so the top publishers, before a book even comes out from one of the big names, they'll buy up 200,000 copies overnight, and the measure of bestseller, if you go on Amazon will give you your bestseller stamp based on how many sales you have in your genre in a particular hour. So if you
Oh,
queue up all your friends and all, you have a
that's gonna be
community of
fun.
a
Yeah.
1,000 people, you might be a bestseller that hour, and now you can say, I'm a bestseller. Again, it's all
Good to
wrapped
know.
around these titles. And
Huh.
so taking our egos out of the way, it's hard. I want to be a bestseller, but I'd rather impact one person really deeply
Mm-hmm.
than worry about selling 80 million copies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
My
Sure.
approach.
Yeah. So let's talk retreats.
I've done I've done a silence retreat and a spiritual retreat. My wife loves the silence retreats, especially
What is
being an executive that's attached to her phone and all these kinds of things.
okay?
I would love to facilitate, be a part of retreats that are sober related, and really it's not just about not drinking.
Mm-hmm.
There's rehab that has a purpose. That's to help you get out of the physical component of addiction, which is just one level.
Mm-hmm.
The spiritual level, it's a constant thing. And with the growing community out there, men and women, I think we all bring things to the table that if we're non-judgmental and don't have expectations, if we just go in and open up and listen. And maybe this is part of my background as a writer too. I love listening. I love hearing people's stories because they leave things in me, they bring things out in me. And so yeah, I'm very interested. I see a lot of them out there, and just haven't really pulled the trigger on something kind of sober
Yeah,
specific. But
I agree with you. Like, there's the stopping out drinking alcohol, whatnot, and then there's what's your life after.
I have to say, Jenna, it's so empowering to hear people who have that focus, and finding a place that people can, natural place, away from the hustle and bustle, someplace beautiful, someplace, I call my book The Endless Horizon, and my next one will be Beneath the Horizon. But for me, the horizon is like the unlimited potential. There is
For
so
sure.
much opportunity out there, and being able to sit out and talk, sit around a fire and talk about life, and real life, and in a genuine way with other people. To me, maybe it's me getting old. I can, all the football talk, and yeah, that's great, but I'd love to, spend a weekend or whatever with folks who are wanting to dig in and see what else is out there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I'm gonna check out your book too. I like that I mean, it's a novel, it's nonfiction, I assume, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this one's historical fiction. I do describe it as sort of an Indiana Jones meets Jack Ryan, except set sort of on the scene of Yellowstone
Oh,
in
perfect.
1846.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it's out west. It's all kinds of history, and you got the Spanish, the Mexicans, the Americans coming across the Santa Fe Trail, Native American, just all kinds of legacies and mysteries, and people trying to find a way to live, and not just live, but thrive in
Mm-hmm.
a mix of different backgrounds and beliefs, and those kinds of things. So I'm passionate about it. The next book is very similar, only it's modern day and starts in Belize. So it's
Cool.
very, very fun. But yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. This will be a great episode.
Well, thank you, Jen. I really appreciate you.
Yeah. No problem.
And
Have a good day.
congrats on all of your successes. I think that's
Thank you.
that's amazing.
Well, and you too. You got one book out there. That's great. Off
It
to the
is.
next.
If today's episode hit home, you're not alone and you're not broken. You're waking up. If you're ready for more honesty, more clarity, and more real talk, make sure to follow, share, or leave a review. And if no one told you today, you're powerful AF. Catch you next time on Alcohol-Free Superpowers.